Whether in the dark of night or in the light of day, stories about witches have always been a forbidden subject. Powerful, seductive, and, in many cases, lethal creatures. These beings not only mastered the occult arts, but with a simple glance, they could destroy entire kingdoms and leave men defenseless before their charms. Today, we will explore 10 of the most beautiful and dangerous witches of the ancient world. Their stories have been told for centuries. But what you're about to discover is something very few dare to mention.
I am the DoQmentalist, and this is the 10 most beautiful and dangerous witches of the ancient world.
1. Circe, sorceress of the seas. Few names resonate as much in the world of sorcery as that of Circe. Daughter of the sun god Helios and the Oceanid Perseus, Circe was a being of incomparable beauty, but with a cold, ruthless heart. She lived on the remote island of Ea, a place that became her stronghold, a refuge where she wove her dark arts, far from the gaze of the gods and mortals. Circe was a master in the art of metamorphosis, a skill she used with lethal precision against those who challenged her, or simply aroused her wrath. When men came to her island, attracted by her beauty and her promises, they ended up transformed into beasts, pigs, wolves, or lions, who roamed helplessly around her palace. These men never understood that their biggest mistake was not to seek Circe's beauty, but to underestimate her. But not everything was cruelty in Circe's life. Her story is intertwined with that of Odysseus, one of the most cunning heroes of ancient Greece. When he arrived on her island, Odysseus managed to resist her charms and not only survived but also became her lover. Even so, Circe could not escape her fate as a lonely figure, a sorceress who, despite her power and her beauty, was caught in the trap of her own magic. Medea, the vengeful witch. If Circe was known for her art of transformation, her niece Medea was engraved in history for her unquenchable thirst for revenge. Medea, a direct descendant of Hecate, the goddess of magic and darkness, was not only a powerful sorceress but also a deeply passionate and dangerous woman. Her beauty bewitched Jason, the leader of the Argonauts, but it was her loyalty to the dark gods that made her a feared figure. Medea's story began with her love for Jason, whom she helped obtain the Golden Fleece. But this act of devotion came at a high price. Medea betrayed her own family and left her homeland for a man who would eventually abandon her for another. Jason's betrayal unleashed in Medea an uncontrollable fury. Instead of succumbing to despair, Medea decided to take revenge in the cruelest way possible. She murdered Jason's new wife, and in an act that still resonates as one of the most heinous crimes in ancient history, she killed her own children. 3. Hecate, the Queen of Witches. Hecate is not just a witch, but the witch par excellence, the goddess of magic, of the moon, and of the night. Although she was not a mortal figure, Hecate is worshipped and feared for her absolute mastery over the dark arts. Often depicted with 3 faces, Hecate was seen as the protector of witches and the keeper of the secrets of the underworld. Her presence was especially powerful at crossroads, places where life and death intertwine, and where sacrifices and rituals were performed in her honor. In ancient times, Witches invoked Hecate to obtain her power, and it was said that her appearance brought with it hordes of black dogs, which announced her arrival with blood-curdling howls. Hecate not only controlled the magic of this world, but also had the power to travel between the world of the living and the dead, guiding lost souls and protecting those who practiced sorcery in her name. 4. Calypso, the immortal seductress. Trapped in the eternal beauty of her youth, Calypso was a nymph who, like Circe, had the power to bend men to her will. She lived on the island of Ogygia, where wild and exuberant nature reflected her own indomitable spirit. It was on this island that Odysseus was shipwrecked, and where Calypso held him captive for 7 long years, offering him immortality in exchange for her love. Calypso did not use spells or potions to trap her victims. Her beauty and sweetness were more than enough to envelop men in a trance from which it was impossible to escape. However, Calypso's true nature was not as benevolent as she seemed. Beneath her kindly appearance there was a deeply selfish figure, ready to hold Odysseus against his will, regardless of the suffering of his wife and son in her absence. Lamia, the child eater. In Greek mythology, Lamia was a queen of Libya who, after becoming Zeus's lover, aroused the wrath of Hera. The goddess, jealous as always, killed Lamia's children, which drove her to madness. From that moment on, Lamia was condemned to wander the earth like a child-devouring monster, unable to find peace or redemption. However, her tragedy did not end there. Hera cursed her with the inability to sleep, which led her to tear out her own eyes in despair. Despite her transformation into a grotesque being, Lamia retained her ability to seduce. Her beauty intact, she was a death trap for young men who fell under her spell only to be devoured. Lamia represents the deepest fear of antiquity, that of the beautiful and dangerous woman who can destroy both life and soul. 6. Empusa, the vampire seductress. Empusa, daughter of the goddess Hecate, was a terrifying figure in Greek mythology. With 1 foot of bronze and 1 of donkey, Empusa was a shape-shifting creature who used her beauty to lure men and devour them. Being a servant of Hecate, her abilities were fearsome. She could take the form of a beautiful woman to seduce unsuspecting travelers, and once they fell under her spell, she would devour them in a brutal manner, draining their blood like a vampire. However, her grotesque appearance did not diminish her power of attraction. Empusa had the gift of transforming herself into whatever her victims most desired. Ancient tales tell how men, upon seeing this supernatural beauty, fell into a kind of hypnotic trance, unable to resist her charms. But after the ecstasy came death. 7. Kakia, the goddess of vice. Kakia, whose name literally means evil, was the personification of vice and temptation in Greek mythology. She is said to have appeared before Heracles, the Greek hero, offering him a life of ease and full of pleasures, if only he would choose to follow his darker desires. Behind her seductive offer, however, lurked a terrible price: spiritual destruction. Kakia was a figure of disturbing beauty. Her angelic face, slender figure, and soft, gentle words hid the heart of a serpent. Those who fell under her influence found themselves immersed in a cycle of self-destruction from which they could seldom escape. Her magic was not obvious. She did not cast curses or potions. Her power was much more subtle and lethal. Temptation. Her charm lay in the promise of satisfying the darkest desires of the human soul. 8. Eris, the goddess of discord. Eris, the goddess of discord, is best known for a single act, which unleashed one of the most devastating wars in ancient history, the Trojan War. In Greek mythology, Eris was not only the embodiment of chaos, but also a figure of lethal beauty, whose charm sowed rivalry and destruction wherever she went. Her greatest feat was throwing the apple of discord during the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, a seemingly insignificant action that nevertheless set off a chain of catastrophic events. What makes Eris so dangerous is not simply her power to create chaos, but her ability to manipulate the most primitive human emotions: envy, pride, and ambition. It is said that even the gods feared her influence, for her ability to unleash rivalry was unmatched. Her beauty was a mirror of what men desired most, and that ability to reflect the deepest, darkest desires of those around her was her most lethal weapon. 9. Clum Nestra, the Killer Queen. Clytemnestra was not a witch in the conventional sense, but her history is tinged with blood and treachery, making her a deadly and dangerous figure. Queen of Mycenae and wife of Agamemnon, Clytemnestra was a woman whose beauty masked a deadly cunning. When her husband sacrificed their daughter Iphigenia to ensure favorable winds in the Trojan War, Clytemnestra swore revenge, and what followed was one of the most tragic and bloody stories of antiquity. Throughout the 10 years of the war, Clytemnestra plotted her revenge. Drawn to Aegisthus, her lover, Clytemnestra not only plotted Agamemnon's murder, but executed the plan with cold, calculating precision. She waited patiently for her husband to return victorious from the war, only to stab him in the bathtub with the same ease with which one slaughters an animal. 10th, Pandora, the original femme fatale. Pandora was not a witch, in the strict sense of the word, but she is perhaps the most dangerous female figure in all Greek mythology. Created by the gods as part of a punishment for mankind, Pandora was designed to be the perfect woman. Her beauty was so radiant that no man could resist her. However, beneath her divine appearance, Pandora hid a catastrophe. The gods gave her a gift, a box containing all the evils of the world. Warned not to open it, Pandora, moved by the curiosity that the gods themselves had implanted in her, disobeyed the order and unleashed the contents of the box upon the world. Disease, death, and suffering flooded the earth, all due to a simple act of curiosity. Conclusion. Each of these women was more than just a witch or a mythical figure. They were forces of nature, women whose beauty was intertwined with dark powers, fatal manipulations, and destruction. From the magic of Circe to the temptation of Pandora, these witches not only changed the course of ancient history, but left an indelible mark on the way we understand power, beauty, and danger.
I am the DoQmentalist, and this was the 10 most beautiful and dangerous witches of the ancient world.